at the forefront of politics.
Our enemy is Trump. He is the enemy. We got to unite. If we're not a united party, we lose to Trump.
On the front lines of activism.
There's certain fights, if we don't engage, they win. This is a fundamental question of who we are.
And delivering your daily dose of comedy.
Donald Trump, when he had his physical, they had his blood pressure, and mine is higher than his. Oh. And the irony is mine is higher because of him.
From the blue wave.
We flipped. Enough seats to take control of the House. We control the House.
To 2020 and beyond. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Friday, January 3rd. We're live here for the next 3 hours. I'm Dean Obeidallah, hoping to be your MBFF. And I can say today that we are closer to World War III than we have been in years and years. And we'll break it down for you today, exactly what's going on. We have some great guests to make sense of what might happen in the future in the second hour. But I really want to not just talk about the actual strike, or even the weeks before the strike, or the week before the strike that killed the Iranian general, to get a sense of what really is going on here. Take a step back, and you will see very clearly what has happened here. In short, President Obama entered into a deal with Iran, along with our allies, to deter a nuclear program and to bring stability to the region. In contrast, Donald Trump ended that deal and has now brought us to the doorstep of war with Iran. And let's be very, very clear. This is exactly where Trump has wanted us to be since day one of his presidency. This is all by design. This is not happenstance. This is not lucky. We happen to get here. This is where Trump wanted to go. The exact timing, obviously, there's political benefit. That's what's going on there. But let's go back. Let's take a step back to really get a big picture view of what happened here. Let's go back to the time of President Obama. After 20 months of negotiations led by us, along with our allies, Iran entered into what's known as a Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, which is known as essentially as the Iran nuclear deal. It's a detailed 159-page document signed by Iran, plus China, France, Germany, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America on July 14, 2015. It was endorsed by a UN Security Council resolution on July 20, 2015. In this deal, Iran agreed, along with allowing inspectors, to curtail their nuclear program and their nuclear activities. In return, crippling economic sanctions would be raised. That's what Iran wanted, an end to economic sanctions. So they gained access to frozen money and able to resume selling oil on the international market. It was working. Iran was complying. Inspectors went in. There was no dispute whatsoever. The deal was working. But Trump ran against that because he ran against everything Obama did. Trump took office in 2017. And since day one has been locked in upping and ratcheting up escalation of tension with Iran. Continually trying to talk about in the first year or so, Iran's not complying with the deal, although the fact checkers were saying, yes, they were. Because they were not complying, I would have said they didn't comply. I want them to comply, or if they had violated, they would be punished. But it didn't matter. Trump kept saying they're not in compliance. So formally, he pulls out of the nuclear deal May 2018. Claimed Iran breached the agreement. Donald Trump was lying, as he lies on so many issues. This one actually matters a lot. So he lied about it. And at the time of him saying the deal is over and the U.S. is out, President Obama put out a statement, a rare statement on policy. He usually does not engage on policy, but the Iran deal was one of his signature accomplishments. And he said at the time, President Obama, in a statement, the reality is clear. The deal is working. That is a view shared by our European allies, independent experts, and the current U.S. Secretary of Defense. He went on to say that this Iran deal is in America's interest. It has significantly rolled back Iran's nuclear program. At the time that Trump said, we're leaving the program, our European allies said, we're staying. Britain, France, and Germany issued a joint statement expressing regret and concern and pledging their continuing commitment to the agreement. Made it clear that Iran was not in violation, as Trump had lied to the American people on the world stage. In fact, Congressman Mike Turner, a Republican, at the time said the Iran deal is deeply flawed. However, without proof that Iran is in violation of the agreement, it is a mistake to fully withdraw from the deal. Close quotes. Even some Republicans in Congress were saying Iran, the deal might not be good, but they're not violating, but Trump doesn't matter. Facts don't matter to Trump. So he went out there and he lied. So step one in Donald Trump's plan to escalate tension with Iran, end the deal. Step two, impose back the crippling sanctions that Iran wanted lifted. August 2018, they did that. Trump made good on his pledge, reimposed the most crippling sanctions on oil, on products, on ability to buy currency, and the list goes on. Donald Trump's goal was to taunt Iran to respond. November 2018, he adds more sanctions, Donald Trump. There's saber-rattling going on. Little by little, Iran is beginning to play the game that Trump wants by being more bellicose in the media. And then in June 2019, Iran shoots down a U.S. surveillance drone. You might recall that happened. Now, Trump was restrained in his response. He was going to do something more. He didn't. But he imposed more sanctions. And so this is what's percolating. Donald Trump ended a deal that was working, a deal that was rolling back and containing Iran's nuclear program. In exchange, Iran was beginning to flourish economically, become more part of the world community. Trump ended that, imposed the crippling sanctions, and that brings us to where we are now. A week ago, because this attack does not happen in a vacuum, and some of the media are just talking about this attack as if, oh, this happened, and what led to this? What led to this is Donald Trump's actions, folks, by design. So then you had, through October, through about December 27th, about 10 rocket attacks against U.S. and Iraqi forces in Iraq. And they were blaming the Iranians. The deadly one happened December 27th, just over a week ago. This is when this really escalated to where we are. December 27th, an Iraqi military base is attacked by missile. One American civilian contractor killed, several wounded. One person killed. It's tragic, but one person was killed. That's it. At the time, the U.S. blamed Kata'ib Hezbollah. That just means party of God. It has the Allah in the name, like Obidallah has Allah in it. I'm servant of God. This is party of God. Vastly different. Kata'ib Hezbollah is an Iraqi Shiite militia group. There are two main Muslim sects, as I think there are other minor sects, but the main ones are Sunni. Overwhelmingly, most Muslims are Sunni. Their Shia is a sect of Islam. So the Iranians are Shia. So this Iraqi Shia group in Iraq was apparently involved in this, and these attacks. There's no denying they were. They're also linked to Qasem Soleimani, the general who was killed yesterday. They are directly linked to it. There's no disputing that. They were a part of it. So you have this attack December 27th. The response 2 days later, December 29th, Donald Trump orders military strike on targets that they say Kata'ib Hezbollah is involved. They kill about 25 Iraqis that day. The response 2 days later, from the other side, it's going back and forth, the escalation. That's the day that in Iraq, the U.S. embassy there was overrun, although they did not penetrate the actual U.S. embassy, but the grounds they were there. They were yelling at the U.S. slogans. They were defacing property. There were no deaths that I saw, and the U.S. sent in Marines there, and there was no loss of life. And after about 2 days of doing this action, this staged action that was clearly at the direction of the Iranian forces, they pulled out. They said, that's it, we're done. They made their point. And Trump took to Twitter going, Iran will be held fully responsible for loss of lives. They're going to pay a big price. So that's where we led to last night. It's been a long path since January of 2017 when Donald Trump got sworn in, and his plan to destroy the Iran deal, to isolate Iran again, to make them suffer. Is it in U.S. interest to do that? No, it's not. It's in Saudi and Israel's interest. There's no doubt. And I guess on some level, when two of your key allies in the region, it's in their interest. It becomes U.S. interest overlapped on some level. You can subscribe to that view or not. What happens last night? During the show, we didn't know for sure who it was. Just saw breaking news. There was an attack at the airport in Baghdad. Well, we learned the U.S. had killed Qasem Soleimani and another leading Iranian figure in Iraq. And this is where we are. Now, if you're wondering, there's a lot of talk about who is Soleimani. In the U.S., I mean, he's viewed formally as a terrorist by our government. They designated him a terrorist in his organization earlier this year. They were killed by a drone strike in Iran, though, this man is revered. This guy is literally talked about as the second most powerful man beside the Ayatollah. Now, that's the reporting. I don't know. We're going to have an Iranian-American on who's an activist in the second hour, and he can give us a little more insight on that. But clearly, Soleimani was involved in plotting and killing what's reported as over 600 U.S. troops over the years. Not recently, over the years, although the one contractor was killed last week, and he was the head of Iran's elite Quds force. Now, I'm going to add something else about Soleimani, which is getting a little press. And it also makes the point that in the Middle East, nothing is simple. Nothing is as simple as it appears, ever. As CNN reminded us today, not on air, because maybe they're afraid of pushback, but in writing, Soleimani was involved in helping us contain ISIS in Iraq. He was fighting on the front lines. Why? Because they're Shia and they hate the Sunni extremists of ISIS. Now, we don't know if they literally coordinated with U.S. forces, but the U.S. forces knew what they were doing and they were happy what Soleimani was doing there. And that's where the odd thing of how we, in the Middle East, and strange bedfellows are always play a role. So the question is, what happened and why did it happen? Now, we've got Mike Pompeo today on CNN trying to explain what's going on with John Berman on CNN. And let's hear clip number 1, please.
You put out a statement a short time ago that says the decision to eliminate General Soleimani was in response to imminent threats to American lives. What was the nature of those imminent threats?
John, I can't talk too much about the nature of the threats, but the American people should know that President Trump's decision to remove Qasem Soleimani from the battlefield saved American lives. There's no doubt about that. He was actively plotting in the region to take actions, a big action as he described it, that would have put dozens, if not hundreds, of American lives at risk. We know it was imminent. This was an intelligence-based assessment that drove our decision-making process. And last night was the time that we needed to strike to make sure that this imminent attack that he was working actively was disrupted.
A specific target overseas?
I'm not going to say anything more about the nature of the attack, but know that this was not just in Iraq. It was throughout the region. It was using these proxy forces that he has manipulated for so long to bring so much destruction to the Shias and Sunnis, the Muslims throughout the region.
And so then John Berman presses him because you have the Secretary of State going on national TV saying the reason we launched this attack now, was because there was an imminent attack being planned. And so John Berman, like a good journalist, presses Mike Pompeo to answer, what are you talking about? On U.S. soil? Where? Here's clip number 2.
Was there any imminent threat to the U.S. homeland?
These were threats that were located in the region.
But will the administration be releasing details of the intelligence which did lead to the raid, the imminent threat, over the next few days?
John, we'll do our best to release everything that we know that's appropriate, that we can, that doesn't put anyone at risk. We'll do our best. We want the world to understand that there was, in fact, an imminent attack taking place. The American people should know that this was an intelligence-based assessment that drove this.
It's so interesting to hear the intelligence-based assessment now, how now the Trump administration loves our intelligence community when they're not demonizing them, when they're not destabilizing them. So when they're helping Trump, they're great. And when they're hurting Trump, they're the deep state. Does anyone, look, here's one of the consequences of Donald Trump lying all the time. You can't believe any of this. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm saying we need evidence. And it could be true. It could be he was planning horrific attacks. It was imminent. It was a ticking bomb and they had to do something. Or it could have been the only thing imminent was Donald Trump's trial in the Senate. And the bad news yesterday from the email showing he directly ordered the withholding of the aid to the Ukraine. So upset and concerned Trump. We don't know. But we do know is Donald Trump told us in 2012 exactly what he would do. You might say, how did he do that? Well, as we all know, Donald Trump projects. He projects on others what he does. He'll accuse others of being liars when he's liars. Well, he attacked President Obama in the closing days of the 2012 campaign, telling us what he thought President Obama was going to do, but in turn actually sharing what he would do. Here's clip number 4, Donald Trump.
Our president will start a war with Iran because he has absolutely no ability to negotiate. He's weak and he's ineffective. We have a real problem in the White House. So I believe that he will attack Iran sometime prior to the election because he thinks that's the only way he can get elected. Isn't it pathetic?
It is pathetic. And Donald Trump told you what he was doing. In fact, he tweeted in October 2012, now that Obama's poll numbers are in a tailspin, watch for him to launch a strike in Libya or Iran. He's desperate. Another tweet, don't let Obama play the Iran card in order to start a war, in order to get elected. Be careful, Republicans. Donald Trump is the king of projection. Donald Trump in 2012 was telling us how he thought. Is that why this attack and this timing? Because, yes, there's no disputing Soleimani. Democrats have said the same thing. Horrible guy. Terrorist. Killed over 600 or involved in planning or giving supplies to kill over 600 U.S. military people. That was years ago, except for the one that was killed December 29th, a contractor. It's hard to say what else went on here. I can tell you this, that Donald Trump handled this like a king, not a president. He did not brief the Gang of Eight in Congress, the leaders of Congress, the intel chairs before. The only person he briefed apparently was Lindsey Graham, who was playing golf with the king. And here's Chuck Schumer on the floor of the Senate today on this very issue about briefing and why it's important that members of Congress are briefed and why a president is not a king. Here's clip number 3, Chuck Schumer.
The operation against Soleimani in Iraq was conducted, however, without specific authorization and any advance notification or consultation with Congress. I'm a member of the Gang of Eight, which is typically briefed in advance of operations of this level of significance. We were not. The lack of advance consultation and transparency with Congress was put in the Constitution, or the need for advance consultation and transparency with Congress was put in the Constitution for a reason. Because the lack of advance consultation and transparency with Congress can lead to hasty and ill-considered decisions. When the security of the nation is at stake, decisions must not be made in a vacuum. The framers of the Constitution gave war powers to the legislature and made the executive the commander-in-chief for the precise reason of forcing the two branches of government to consult with one another when it came to matters of war and of peace.
And Speaker Pelosi put out a statement saying the airstrike risked provoking further dangerous escalation of violence. Full Congress must be briefed. Then we learned Donald Trump sending nearly 3,500 more troops to the Middle East today. Joe Biden responded, I'm not privy to the intelligence. Much remains unknown, but Iran will surely respond. We could be on the brink of a major conflict across the Middle East. I hope the administration has thought through the second and third order consequences of the path they have chosen. But I fear this administration has not demonstrated at any turn the discipline or long-term vision necessary, and the stakes could not be higher. Does anyone think Donald Trump thought about the second or third level consequences of this? Of course not. It's a joke to think that. Bernie Sanders. Trump's dangerous escalation brings us closer to another disastrous war in the Middle East that could cost countless lives and trillions more dollars. Trump promised to end endless wars, but this action puts us on the path to another one. Liz Warren. Soleimani was a murderer responsible for deaths of thousands, including hundreds of Americans. But this reckless move escalates the situation with Iran and increases the likelihood of more deaths and new Middle East conflict. Our priority must be to avoid another costly war. The reactions around the world were pretty clear. Russia said the attack was murder and a reckless step. Iraq's prime minister condemned it, calling it an assassination and a dangerous escalation. Lebanon slammed it. Europe, not happy. Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel praised it. Praised Trump for swiftly, forcefully, and decisively acting. Short time ago, Donald Trump made a statement. I won't play the clip because I don't like to hear his voice. He said about Soleimani, his reign of terror is over. His reign of terror is over. You've got Trump and Pompeo talking about Soleimani like he's the head of a small terrorist cell of like 20 people or 100 people. Here's the reality, folks. Nothing is over. It is beginning. Soleimani is part of a military that's over 500,000 people in the military of Iran in a country of over 80 million. Killing one doesn't make it over. It's the beginning. I don't know how they're going to respond. They're going to respond in some way. It might be cyber war. It might be soft targets in the Middle East. It might be random planes here or there. I have no idea. I shudder to think what they will do. But when you kill the second highest ranking guy, essentially in the military, in the nation, a beloved figure, you know they have to respond because they have to save face too. You know, the questions that have to be asked are about why now? Is it as simple and as brazen as Trump politically thought this was the time to imminently stop the trial that's going to happen in the Senate? Is this benefiting Trump somehow personally? I mean, we saw oil prices jump. Did Donald Trump or his family buy stocks in oil companies? And usually that would be ridiculous to say, but not with the Trumps. Look at Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner, but especially Ivanka, making money off her job in the White House with trademarks from China and Japan while her dad's negotiating deals with both countries. And that's not beyond them. So Congress has to investigate that as well. They can do that quietly. Is this World War III in the making? I don't think Trump cares. But the reality is where we are today is where Trump wanted us to be. From day one of his administration, even as a candidate, but from day one, his goal was to end the Iran deal, to isolate Iran, and to escalate tensions. And that has brought us to where we are today, Friday, January 3rd, close to the beginning of a hot war. And they had to know it, but I don't think Trump cares. Trump's getting his press. I think Trump is so cravenly simplistic that it's dangerous. If Trump controls the media narrative for a day, it's a win without thinking about what can happen next. And I don't want to scare people. I honestly don't think and I'm going to have an expert on, 2 experts in the next hour. I don't think Iran's going to start a real war with us now. Even though they're 80 million people, they don't have the wherewithal to actually have a sustained war, but they can have a Cold War, which heats up here and there with attacking soft targets in the Middle East. It can be cyber war. They could be attacking our allies, Americans visiting, traveling through the Middle East, kidnappings through some of their proxies. All of that is possible and likely. I don't see it as a missile firing on Washington, D.C. or New York. It's way beyond the pale of expecting that. But this is where we are. So I'm really curious. What do you think about why Trump did this now? Yes, there's no doubt over 600 American soldiers in years past killed, involved by Soleimani and his work. But during the time of the Iran deal, there's not evidence that Iran was engaged in this kind of activity, like killing, like they did of the U.S. contractor last week. There's not that activity. It was gone. The Iran deal was working. It may not have been perfect. It could have been better, but it was working. But Trump wanted to end it because everything Obama did, Donald Trump wanted to end. And the fact that President Obama wanted to bring stability to the region, he also wanted to end. And this is where we are today. So do you think, are we on the way to a war? Are you more concerned about soft target war, that kind of war? Or do you actually think we're going to have a bigger war? Because I could be wrong. Who would have thought he's going to kill Soleimani? I mean, none of us know the name of Iranian generals, but when I heard he was killed, I knew his name. I'm like, wow, that's a big guy they killed. This is far bigger than them killing like Petraeus or Jim Mattis. This is someone who's been their top general for years, who is connected to the Ayatollah and very beloved and respected in their country. A whole different level. It's a whole different level. It's not a democracy. It's a whole different world there, as you might imagine. How do you think they're going to avenge it? That's my question, because that's how we have to prepare and deal with this. And is this part of Trump's 2020 campaign? Or do you think it's just more temporary for him? I'm really curious. Why the timing? Why now? It makes little sense to me. He was plotting something? We might find out he was plotting something big, and we'll find that out soon enough. But killing him, will that really end that plotting? I don't know why. He's not the head of a small terror cell. That's my point. He's the head of a military wing that's part of over 500,000 people military. The Iranian leaders already appointed as replacement, who was his deputy. So whatever plans he was doing, I can pretty confident that deputy's going to step up and do the same thing because to avenge his boss, who's a beloved figure. We know that. So it's a game for Pompeo. And again, do you believe anything the Trump administration is saying now? Do you believe that it was an imminent plot? If they show us evidence and Democratic members of Congress see it, especially those like Adam Schiff and others who have experience with intel, and come back and go, you know what? There was credible, objective evidence, then that's fine. It doesn't make up for Trump exposing our nation potentially to Americans getting killed. Trump said today, in Pompeo, we did this to save American lives. And we saved hundreds of American lives. But you've exposed countless more. You know that. You've got to know that. You don't have to know anything about any military. You could just watch one Tom Clancy novel, turn into a movie, or one movie with Harrison Ford doing something. Any movie. You do this, you know there's going to be a response. There has to be. The question is when. Do they wait 6 months and all of a sudden a plane falls out of the sky and they don't take responsibility, but we have to worry about air travel? Or computers get locked up, or like North Koreans when they were doing their hacking. I'm really curious, where do you think they respond? Because they're going to respond. We know that. And why did Trump do it now? Was it about impeachment? Was it about something else? Is it about 2020? So this is part of his things he checks off and goes out there and goes, look I killed bin Laden. Not bin Laden, I killed Baghdadi. I killed Soleimani. Look at all the Muslims I killed for you. I'm giving you what you want. Red meat to the base. I can't ban them, but I can kill them now as president. Is that part of it? I'm so curious to hear what you think. 866-997-4748. Be right back after this.
Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.